This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Care Notes for caregivers and for all of us with Doug Wilber from Cherished Companions. And I'm glad to see that you are well and probably in line for some sort of vaccine here in the near future.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, when when things are set and stuff like that, I'll end up going for the vaccine. I really believe that the vaccine is the right way to go, and has its place, especially for the vast majority of population, unless for some reason it's contraindicated. But I think it is definitely sort of our way out of this COVID tunnel that we found ourselves in this last year. So
Absolutely. And with you working with um, basically the elderly population, they're the most vulnerable, as we all know. And even though many of them have been sort of hibernating in their homes, it doesn't mean that this virus hasn't, gotten into their homes. And so we've got to be a little bit more careful. But one of the things I've noticed on Facebook recently is you've been awarding your own caregivers. So I want to start there. Um, I love when I read these little messages about the caregiver of the month or somebody who's done something special. So, is this something that all home care providers do? Because I don't hear about it other than through Cherished Companions.
right, well, I will tell you some things that are about the company that I do believe is a unique aspect of who we are. Our caregivers really are the center of what we do. When I started the company, honestly, my biggest concern was to get the right people in place, and more than anything else, because I knew that was really critical to care, because I know where my heart is, and I know that if I was doing care, what I would want that for me to do for people, and and yet I'm not personally the one doing the care. Um, my goal when I started the company was to get the very best caregivers that we can, and really to be top of class with everything that we do, but specifically with the caregivers, because that's where the pedal hits the metal, as they say. That's where care actually is going on, is with those caregivers. And so we have a really, really crazy good process in getting our caregivers on our bus, this Cherished Companions bus. Um, they go through an extensive interviewing process, which is very unique. There's techniques that we use that are I believe are world class, and very unique in uncovering who those people are that are going to be doing care because they actually care. And that's one of the things that I've said is I want care to be done by people who actually care. And so, part of that is then celebrating the people that we have, recognizing the good that people are doing. And so we really do. We spend a lot of time in trying to celebrate our caregivers when they've done a good job. And also, we spend the time, um, obviously, in trying to coach and stuff when people aren't hitting, what we want, to get them to the place of excellence in every area. We have, a really robust national training program that we use for our folks as well. So we spend a lot of time doing all those pieces
Right.
to do it. But one of the components of with our caregivers is to try to really um, to really celebrate when they do well. And part of that is we have 2 awards a month that really recognizes different aspects of caregiving, and then trying to get folks, recognized that have done really cool things. And so the care managers, or actually anyone in the company, can nominate someone for caregiving, and even our clients can nominate someone for those caregiving excellence things that we then recognize with the 2 monthly awards that we do.
Well,
So,
and I think that's really important because if people go out to your website, they will notice that you have won awards for Cherished Companions, and not just you, your whole staff. Okay.
right. Oh,
Your
yeah.
staff, your clients, everybody involved. And this year you won yet again.
Right. Yeah. We just found out today that we won an award called the Leader in Excellence Award. Um, and the Leader in Excellence Award, we are really in the top 15% of companies that do these surveys. Now, I'm going to put a little context in this, is that um, this doing surveys with our caregivers and our clients is an expensive venue. We have this professional company that benchmarks other companies around the country, and what they're looking for is different categories, and ask very kind of in-depth questions based on these categories, and then we're compared to our peers around the country. And so we know we're in the top 15% of all the companies. Where we land, I don't know exactly, but we know that we're in that top 15% of those that are conscientious enough to do these type of surveys. It's a company called Home Care Pulse, which really is the premier company that does benchmarking in our industry. They're it. I mean, they're really the biggest of any type of benchmarking that's being done. And it's great because it's across the nation, and across Ohio as well, and we can see exactly, how we are in these various categories stacking up against our peers. And what makes it significant is if we're in the top 15%, what does that mean? Because these are the most conscientious
Right.
of companies. I feel pretty confident where we sit, in all companies.
Well, and as I look at the awards that you're winning as a corporation, um, it starts from, well, it's two ways. It's top down and it's from the bottom up. Um,
Right,
and I want to remind people that, and I know this is a new thing, at least I think it is a new thing through University Hospital and Cleveland Clinic. As soon as you see a doctor, even before you get home, you're getting a message asking you to review. And those reviews are not virtual reviews, even though we're filling them out virtually. They're asking us for a realistic, expectations of what we saw, how we felt, and how that provider was. So this means that your staff, your clients are actually answering those questions heartfully.
right,
And that's important because if we don't, um, a company could go on doing things incorrectly or not as well as they should.
mhm,
So I want to encourage people when you get those surveys, take the few minutes, fill them out, um, and encourage, you know, yourself to put in comments that really make sense. And I remember doing that when my mother passed away.
yeah,
I as I've told you before, we had one set of caregivers during the day, absolutely excellent, never would have complained about them. In fact, if I would have had $1 million myself, I would have just handed it over to them.
right, yeah,
But my evening caregivers came from various other companies and There were some, like you said, very conscientious, knew what they were doing, wanted to be there, and did a great job. And others, it was a paycheck. They
Right.
wanted my mother to just lie in her bed, sleep, not be bothered, and maybe they could doze off too. And so I got into writing reviews and not
Mhm.
just saying, you know, Mary was a bad caregiver. I would explain what happened with Mary when she was there. And I think that's why you guys excel, because people are seeing that you're training your care providers in such a way that they want to be with you and they want to be with their clients.
Right. Yeah. And the thing that's interesting about the benchmarking that we do in this Leader in Excellence Award, we actually won 3 awards, and one is Provider of Choice, which means we were recognized for the work we're doing with the clients. A second award, Employer of Choice, which means we're recognized for the work that we were doing with our actual employees. And then the last thing is the Leader in Excellence. Now, the Leader in Excellence is the very top category you can possibly be in with this series of benchmarking studies. At least until now, I heard they're going to be having a next level that they're going to be doing. But up until this point, this is um, the very lead, the very best of the best. And what they do is they look at across all categories, both with surveys that are done with caregivers and with clients, to be able to find, you have to have both and be able to be in that very top level, to win this Leader in Excellence Award. And But one of the things, I mean, we're not doing the benchmarking studies to just toot our horn and win awards.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
that's not it. As far as, we really, to your point, want the feedback. Now, actually, the best feedback we can get, and this is what I tell people when I have time in the intake process, is to be able to say to folks, hey, we want to really excel and go beyond your expectations as far as doing the care. And you know that they don't have to wait to surveys to make a phone call and to say, hey, I'm concerned about this. And matter of fact, I prefer that. I don't want someone to
Absolutely.
wait to that point and in doing it. I want the phone call saying, hey, someone isn't meeting my expectations, or you're exceeding our expectations. That's great too. We love hearing that as well. But but to be able to say, you know what, I have some concerns in this area. And what the benchmarking study does is it allows us to be able to uncover where there's issues or problems, because the way our this particular surveys work is it's actually live surveys. So they are calling people up
Okay.
and getting direct feedback. So um, they're writing down things that people are saying and stuff like that. But since it's a third party vendor, one of the things that Home Care Pulse, which is the third party vendor, is doing is they allow a person to either remain anonymous or to give their name. And if they give their name, my expectation is that we follow up. We go and say, hey, um, you know, um, we understand that you had some concerns or a problem, or this was an issue, if there is an issue, and we just want to follow up and see, how we can, make things right. And that's ultimately what I'm after, is that as a company, that we're always doing the best, that we're always improving, that we're always doing better than we did yesterday. And yeah, so
Yep. And when we're seeking care for a family member. Sometimes we don't really know what we mean by that. We
Right.
know that, we don't feel that we are able, whether it be to take care of their intimate needs or even their daily needs, like somebody going grocery shopping for them or somebody actually just sitting and having a meal with them. Um, and it's difficult on the family side because you need help, and then we contact a company like yourself, and luckily you do a good enough intake where hopefully you're capturing all that in the beginning. But again, if the family isn't open enough to explore what the member needs and what they need, you are going to make some mistakes along the way. And
Right.
people need to understand that. I didn't understand it initially. Like I said, when we started hiring care for my mom, I thought, well, you know, I'm giving you a medical history here. This is what the situation is. And
Right.
you're supposed to be smart enough to figure it out. And I realized that that's not always the truth. Okay. I can say, yes, my mom is now an invalid and she's in bed. And, she may need changing and she may need, um, somebody to sit and talk to her. But I didn't know what else she would need in the middle of the night. My hope was she would just sleep through the night. But once I realized all the different things that she could need, that's when I could go back to a company like yours and say, okay, this is
Right.
what I know. And not all family members are going to have that experience because they're not staying in the house as well.
Right. Well, and here's the thing is, what I can say is when you've seen one client, you've seen one client. Okay. That every family, every situation is different. And family dynamics are completely different. And that's what I really love about home care because if you go into a facility, it really is more cookie cutter because it has to be. It has to be that we're going to do this at this time because you're dealing with, I mean, some of these large facilities have just huge number of people in there, and it really limits the individuality of what you can do and when you can do it. And what is wonderful about home care is that whether it be the hours that we do or the needs of the client, it really is focused on those folks, and my mom, interesting enough, we found that when she would if my mom always was like a late sleeper. That was just her thing. She was, it was just who my mom was. She was not the one, and this is not besmirching her at all, but she was not the mom that was up making pancakes. When we were young and in middle school or high school or whatever. It just that wasn't my mom. She slept in late and she stayed up later at night, and but that pattern didn't go away when she was older. So we found when the caregiver would get her up in the morning and awaken her early. So if she got up at, let's say 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, heaven forbid, she would not be good the rest of the day. She was not, it threw her off. But if the caregiver let her sleep in and she just kind of followed her natural rhythm, she functioned really well throughout the day. She, she was able to really think better, to process things better. I mean, the whole nine yards.
Sure.
And that's the wonder of home care, but also is the challenge, and which is that the caregiver working with the family and the client care manager has to work together to say what is the right plan, and that is with what you were saying before, it's sort of an evolving process. It's the daughter or the son saying, hey, I really think mom needs this. And it's the caregiver giving the feedback. I'm noticing this with your mom. and it working all together in this kind of beautiful way when it does work, well, in being able to come up with plans and doing the care and other things. The flip side of it is that in those situations where the where the caregiver is really giving that good feedback and really adapting, when all of a sudden things start changing, with the person, and
Sure.
let's say they need more care, that you're getting that feedback, and that team approach really works well. Am I going to sit here and say it always works perfectly and is always, no, it's, you know care is messy. It really is. At best it is like a painting, and sometimes you have to paint over that section that you just did because it didn't turn out exactly right. you
Well,
know
and I think we all have to get rid of that expectation of perfection because life is obviously not perfect. And the one thing I've learned about caregiving is that it's not always for somebody who is unable necessarily to take care of themselves. Okay. Um, you just may need somebody there for reassurance for mom and dad to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, or mom or dad to be able to take a shower or a bath on their own. It's just knowing that they're not totally alone at certain times. Too many of us get this feeling that caregiving means, oh, this person is ill, um, this person can't function, and the reality of it is, a lot of these elderly people are extremely functional. Their problem is that they're alone,
Yeah,
and
I without divulging any information or whatever, I was in a client yesterday, and I was doing a, um, a live visit with this individual who is talking about becoming, a client or whatever, and her needs were very unique, and again, that's the great thing about home care, is that her needs were um, were going to be very different, as I mentioned before, from others. And what in her case, she's has some cognitive decline, has some issues with not being able to articulate her needs well. She has, definitely some language deficits in that. So as we're kind of going through this, I was trying to realize, okay, what is she needing? And she needs safety and other things. So, and I'll give you an example. I was there and her phone wasn't working, and the only phone that was working was way upstairs in her bedroom, and a couple times during the our 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 day, she's wasn't really sort of stable, and so you start putting together the plan. Okay, what is it that she's going to need? And in her case, she's getting along okay, but if we step in and we can do prompting, hey, did you remember to take your pills, or helping her with cooking meals, because when I was there she was cooking a meal and she burned the meal, and so there were things where her care needs were such that she was going to need a fair amount of help, during the day. But if we do it right, it's going to promote and give her independence. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is make it so it's possible for people to have independence and just to thrive in her own home. And that's the one thing she was able to articulate well, is I want to be home. I want to be in my house. And she indicated, I want to die in my house. That's what she said. I want this to be the place. You know, she didn't want to go and be in some facility or something like that. And she was absolutely crystal clear with that, with, in her indications. And so, and that's what we're trying to figure out. How do we do that? How do we make that possible?
And I think that's why you're winning the awards, because you're listening and you're hearing what people are saying, whether it be the client or the client family. You're listening to your caregivers. Um, and we don't do that a lot in society today.
Right. Yeah.
We hear what people are saying and then we say, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And it's like, well, really? Why is it going to be that way? And I go back, keep referring to my mom, that before she got ill, we knew there were certain things that she needed help with. And we knew if we said to her, Mom, you need help with this, she would have just blown us off and said no. Um, so we approached it differently and we said, would it be easier for you if somebody brought you your medication in the morning and the evening? That way you don't have to have the bottles sitting out.
Mhm.
And the more she thought about it, she said, that's a good thing. And so she knew in her mind, because from a previous stroke, she could not count anymore. And so
Yeah.
she knew what pills to take, but didn't know how many to take. But putting it in that way, so now she had some who came in the morning, some who came in the afternoon. She didn't like taking their transportation to go grocery shopping. And so I said to her one day, well, what if you had an adoptive daughter who did your grocery shopping for you or took you grocery shopping? And she said, I hate the grocery store.
Mhm.
I said, well,
That's good.
guess what? I'm going to adopt a sister for you and she'll do your grocery shopping. My mother felt like a queen.
Right.
So we realized those two things in place. She had her independence. She was doing what she needed to do. And so there's the difference between just hearing and looking at her and going, okay, well, Mom, you need somebody to come in and give you your medicine and you need somebody to do your shopping. She wouldn't have accepted it. And neither would I, to be honest.
Right. Yeah.
Present it to me in such a way that it's a great thing.
Right.
So how,
It's kind of ironic. Just as I want to laugh about something, which is, if you're younger and someone says, "Hey, uh, um, eh, let's say I've given you um, a year worth of house cleaning," you would say,
yeah,
"Hooray!" But then you try to present like, hey, you've worked really hard all your life. We're going to help with having someone do some light cleaning or doing your laundry, and it's like no. so I mean, part of it is like you said, in the presentation, in helping people to understand, because if someone kind of sees this as like, yeah, this is wonderful, that's great. If they see it as you're taking away my independence, then it's a whole different view. And
absolutely.
that's, that presentation is really ideal or really important.
But
So
not all caregiving home care providers do what you do. Okay. They provide caregivers, but I've seen friends of mine who have had people come in and they'll give them a list and they'll say, this is what your parent needs. And
yeah.
I'll have a discussion with them and say, well, your dad is still driving and he's capable of driving. He's not that guy on the road that everybody's getting out of his way. So why are they suggesting we take his car keys away today?
Well, one of the, we spend, or actually we send over for our folks a care plan, and we ask them to fill it out. And I tell people, I said, be as granular as you possibly can be with this. I said, we welcome that. Because if we know, that your mom likes her applesauce warm and her, juice a certain temperature and, marmalade on her toast and whatever, that's a great thing. And so you can get really detailed. I said, if you don't have room on the care plan as far as things that you want to do, write it separately, because we want to kind of, make that a great experience. We want to do things the way that the person wants. Um, and you had said something before that kind of triggered something, a thought in my head, and that is, we live in a time, unfortunately, where it seems like everyone has an agenda, and everybody's sort of after a you know something that's going to benefit them, and um, and one of the things that we've really attempted to do at Cherished Companions is to not be that way, to consciously not be that way. And what I've done is I've set it up so that if we do care, um, we'll we'll make money, we'll be profitable, whatever. I mean, if we're focusing on that, but what we focus it, so we what I say we have is a care model, which is that care is the center of what we do, and we have a good business model so that when we do that right, we'll remain solvent, we'll remain
Right.
profitable, we'll we'll do okay with that. But our focus needs to be on the care, okay? So not coming in with an agenda, not trying to push something, that and so we have our parameters and how things we can and can't do or whatever. But then it's just honestly looking at what is right for that individual. And there are many times, many times where I'm talking and say, hey, we can do it this way and it's going to save you money, or I've seen this or whatever. And it really is aimed at doing the right thing for the individual. And first of all, it's the most incredible experience to do it, because all I'm doing is trying to help people. And that really is our focus within the parameters that we can work in. And then it is to what you said before, which is listening, figuring out how can we fit into this to be a benefit to someone else, and just take any self-interest really out of the equation and focus in on doing the right thing. um, and um, and there are times where, let's say, someone may qualify for some benefit that takes us out of the equation. I'll tell the person about that benefit, because we're focusing in on care, and God will take care of the rest. I mean, and I mean that
Absolutely.
seriously. We'll focus in on it, and try to do always the right thing for that individual and for their families, in that case. And and that's where we go back to, when you see one client, you've seen one client. And how do we fit into that picture of doing care, and in the overall scope of the goals that that family has for their loved one. So
I'm glad you brought up one thing, and that is business model and care model. And for those of us who are looking for care for family members, we have to understand that it is a business as well. And a lot of us, put our backs up against the wall and go, oh my gosh, it's going to cost me X. Oh, I can do it by myself, or I can get my neighbor to do it. And maybe you can do it yourself,
right.
but that you have to be a totally different person than me because I can't do it myself. Um, and your neighbor may be available and may be the best choice, but we all don't have a neighbor who can do these things. And so, because it is a business, we have to accept the fact that there's going to be a cost. But if you're getting the right care, you'll find a way. And my husband and I talk about this all the time. Maybe our insurance doesn't cover something, but if you really need it, you'll find a way to
Right.
serve yourself so that maybe you go out one less evening, or you buy one less pair of shoes, or whatever it is. Um, but having quality of life is so important. And that's why you're leading and in the top 15%.
Yeah, and I kind of the whole cost thing, and cost is important because, obviously,
Sure.
but you have to put things in perspective. It's really important. Number one, um, you know, people have saved, many people, not all, but many people have saved for that rainy day. And in the cases that I'm going in, most oftentimes it's raining. Okay. It is raining and sometimes it's pouring, and so this is the time to utilize those funds to do the right thing, in that situation. The other thing is that you have to see the difference between, you know, you have to look at things as value as well, and value is a different concept than cost. That you have to kind of say, okay, what's the value of this thing? And so there is a value in being at home. There is a value in having a professional caregiving company doing the care, as opposed to, a neighbor, situation or whatever. And and so you have to really look at that big picture and say that what is the value? And that's one of the things that I try to do when I'm meeting with people, and we as a team try to do, is try to figure out, ways that we can work with people to help them, figure that piece out, and stuff, and not by trying to convince someone of something, but really by using our experience, by understanding, helping, and working with folks. So, and I'll give you an example. Sometimes families can say, "Hey, we can do evenings with mom." That we as a family, we can divide it up and we can do the evenings. Where we need help is in the mornings because we're working or we're doing this or whatever, and um, and so we kind of say, okay, then you guys will be responsible for doing that. We'll come in and we'll do that morning thing. And then that, working with someone, you can figure out, okay, now we can make this work. And now we have enough money to stretch to cover, doing that. So I think that kind of highlights the point that you were saying, but also, it gets back to at least how I think a good company really should operate. A good agency needs to be taking on that the thing where you're feeling like, yeah, this is someone we can work with, and and I think oftentimes people will, you have an interaction, and that's ultimately what I will say to people is, you're going to have hiccups. You're dealing with people and schedules, and when you have that, you're gonna have issues. You're gonna have problems. What you need to, when you're working with any company, and this is really really important, is say, can I work with them, and do I feel like when I have a problem, it's going to get resolved? When I have a need and I'm expressing I want it done this way, that that they're going to try to work to do this so that my loved one's taken care of, and they're going to do the best that they possibly can to make that happen, because anyone who thinks it's going to be problem free is in for a rude awakening. Okay, it's just that's it's not going to happen, and if you run away if someone tells you it is, or doing it because they're being a used car salesman, so, or saleswoman.
Right. Life
But
is not problem free. We know that. So,
no, it's just not going to happen. Um, but what we can do is hopefully give that thing of, shh, things are going to be taken care of. I'm not carrying this burden alone now. I have someone that will work with me to help get to the goals that I need for my, parent, or for my spouse, or for me, whatever it is, and make it work. So, and I really believe, because of that, that's been part of the reason that we've won, the number of awards that we have over the years, is because we're focused on people, and focused on doing the right things, and being a resource, and stuff. I've often said, the way I wanted to set this up is like a good old fashioned doctor's office, where you go in, that doctor is really focusing on doing the right thing for you. And the other part just kind of falls in line, um, but that's the way that like the old fashioned, the good doctor was, really did operate, and I come from 4 generations of physicians. I know that's how it operated. And the that's what we aim for. And so, yeah.
Well, congratulations on the awards. Keep up the good work. I love working with you because every time we do a podcast, I walk away saying there's good in this world. There are people out there who really, really care. And then when I watch Facebook and I see you acknowledging, your caregivers, it brings a smile to my face because I know there will be a day in my future that I'm going to need one of them. And you know what? I wanted to be the best of the best. And that's one of the things that scares me, you know. And that's why I was glad I was with my mom, because I could make sure that if somebody wasn't the best, at least for her, um,
That you
we
were there,
we
her
worked with them,
advocate.
we brought
Yeah.
somebody else in, so I can at least look back and say we did the best that we could. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
thank you again.
So, oh, sure. And
Wow,
this was fun. And yeah, everybody stay well.
take care now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.